Today I'm going to show you how to do fusible applique. We're doing it in a more abstract style than say more traditional things like hearts or bunnies or whatever you're feeling. I'm going to be using Fairfield World stick, which they actually provided me with. The design that we're doing today is abstract, like paint splatters, and I'm going to be turning this into a skirt, which is going to be a part 2. But for part 1, we're just going to go over how to make a fusible applique of any of your design choice. You'll have all the instructions. It's kind of a long video, but bear with me. I did split this up because this is going to be made into a skirt. So all the instructions are next, guys. I have a little tabletop ironing board. Normally I would use my really big one, but for this video I figured everything on the tabletop would be great. This is just like a little college or small space one. I add a new cover to it to make it all pretty. To have my fabric set out in my iron. I don't know if I can really show you that. But it is set to cotton, and I have the steam on so we can get a nice flat iron on here. So all we're going to do is, this is all heated up. I just hold my hand like that. Don't touch it. And just iron everything flat. Now we will get to ironing of the other fabrics in a little bit, because we kind of have like a cheater method for that, because we don't need as much fabric. So all you're going to do is go back and forth. You do the other side too. And pull it along to do that. It's a little tricky for me to show you how to do this because there is a camera tripod standing right in front of me. So you just go back and forth all the way to the end. Like I said, I'm working on like a little bitty one, so it's a little hard. So you iron all of the pieces. Once you're done ironing, what I like to do is just kind of drape it over the back of a chair or something so it doesn't get like this harsh crease again. Because we will be needing to iron more things to this, and it will get super nice and pressed. And then we'll need some crisp edges for hemming. Alright, so I'm going to do all of these panels without recording, so it's a little bit easier for me. And I will be back in a moment. Alright guys, so I'm back, and I have all this fabric cut into rectangles. They're various sizes based on the fabric, and I have them set from purple all the way to the palest pink. Like I mentioned, you could do any spectrum that you wanted. If you wanted all cool colors, all warm, that's fine. I also have cut a piece of stick fusible interfacing, which is a web, kind of like a spider web. Yeah, you can see that nice detail. So what it is able to do is melt with a hot iron. This iron is still on cotton, but I have set the steam to off because we won't actually need steam for this next part. I've already prepped the little ironing board with a piece of parchment paper. You guys can just find that in like the baking section with like aluminum foil, wax paper, stuff like that. I'm going to need a second sheet, which I've already ripped. So let's move some of this out of the way. And I'll show you what we're going to do with that. So I have already fused a piece to show you what it looks like. I just freshly fused it. So what this does is the stick makes this able to be cut without fraying so much and be able to adhere your shape without a lot of messy glue to some black fabric. So what you do, open up your fabric. You want to give it a nice pressing. Normally I do this with the steam still on, but it's not really a big deal. This piece is kind of flat anyway. What you can do is, I cut this piece to match up going this direction. A little bit. Put that out of the way so I can show you. I'm just going to take scissors and cut along here so it's a little bit cleaner. And it is perfectly fine if it doesn't cover for this particular project. It doesn't cover everything because we're going to be doing some abstract shapes. And I can definitely make them work through my funky cutting from a different piece. So we're going to sandwich this. Ooh, where to put it? So this is where we need our second piece of parchment paper. Let's move the scissors. We're going to make a sandwich. So what the bottom piece of parchment paper does is protect your ironing board from the adhesive when it gets hot. Because we don't want the adhesive to touch your iron, which the top piece is for, or to mess up the ironing board. So if you were really precise and cut your fuse to be smaller than the edges of your fabric, then you wouldn't have to really worry about covering your ironing board with a piece of parchment paper, but it won't hurt anything. It's not going to stick, and that's the point. So what you're going to do is just hold this for about 10 seconds. Sorry if I wiggled the camera. And just keep moving. Maybe even less than that. It's really thin stuff. So you just slowly go back and forth. And you can see that it is definitely sticking. This is obviously not fused, and this is, and you can see the marks. So what you're going to get, I'll stop that shape, is a piece, and you can see the edges where it still has that interfacing on there. And the texture is a lot different. So this is where it doesn't have the fuse. This is where it does. And yeah, you can see that texture. It's kind of more shiny here and not so shiny there. So we're going to have to do this with every piece. It's going to take a little bit. Obviously, they're not too big of pieces, so it's more just the fiddly bits of having to cut each of the pieces of stick. They're not as wide as, say, a piece of regular fabric. These little rectangles of fabric are half of the selvage. So selvage, again, is that woven edge to woven edge. This is woven edge to middle. And then this is probably about 6 inches or 6 to 8 inches tall. So I can have some big paint splatters. So I'm going to go through all of these and fuse it because this will be super boring. And then we'll be back to the fun part where we start chopping up the fabric and making paint splatters. We'll be right back. Alright, so the shapes that we want are going to be more abstract, like paint splatters would be. And this isn't like, say, if you splattered paint. This is more like if you squished out paint and it wasn't like a perfect circle, if that makes sense. So all you can do is take fabric and your scissors and make squiggly shapes. You can make these big or small as you want. I like to keep the scraps from this part. So when I'm filling in the shapes, I can, or filling in the black, I should say, I can have little bits that are paint splatters, should I want to, and I may not. So I have this. You still have quite a bit left. You could make these just, you know, one at a time if you wanted, as far as like you do this and you fuse it and then maybe you cut out a different shape to fill in a different area. But you're going to do this with all the different colors. I like to just cut them all out at once, and then if I need to adjust the shape, I can go back in with some scissors and do that, and you know, it's not really going to be a big deal. Alright, so when we get back, we will be fusing all of these to the black panels. So that'll be next. Alright, so I've cut out some pieces for you. One thing I wanted to show you is if you have a shape that after you've kind of cut it abstractly, just wiggling back and forth, and you're not super happy with it, you can just go back in and reshape it to make it more pronounced on the curves. Or however you would like. Oh, I'm just going to reshape this one a little. And I just cut a few of them so I could show you real quick before my daughter came home. So you can make them however you want. Obviously these are different shapes. What you want to do as far as placement is you want to keep it away from this edge, which is going to be seamed to one of the other panels, and then I'm actually going to fuse pieces over top of those seams. But I will do that later. Like, I didn't want to set up the sewing machine and sew only one seam and then go back and forth and whatnot. It'll be easier this way because the other one's going to have the zipper in there. We'll get to that later. So we are laying this out, and you also want to keep it away from the very bottom because that's going to be hemmed up. So you can kind of, so your hem's probably going to be a 2-inch fold, you know, this way and in. You could definitely iron it if you wanted, if that made it easier. But just know that you wouldn't leave it like that when you're going to be seaming it later. Like it's going to be all the way up inside. I'd rather do that at the end. So that way I can make sure everything is even on that hem. So you can do that as just kind of like a guide, but don't worry about it too much. So just lay them out however you want. Like I mentioned, those scraps are really great for filling in like these little edges. And all you're going to do once you get it kind of the way that you want it, I'm going to go back in and trim this one a little too. You may have been totally satisfied with that piece, but you do whatever you want to your skirt, or whatever you turn this into. So, have my iron set, and this time I actually have steam back on it. All you're going to do is make sure, I'm fiddling with everything, make sure you have everything the way that you really want it, and then you're just going to hit it with the iron. Now you can kind of move this around, like it'll definitely be fused pretty fast. But I am working really slow. Well, I think it's slow. But you can hear that steam just chugging on. I live right beside a train, so it doesn't rhyme with that. So every time that you cut one, or every one that you've cut, you just lay it out and do it in little batches for the fusing. Because if you laid it all out, you'd have to pin it. And a lot of times the pins will warp the fabric. And I like to just abstractly go in. Say if this was a different color, you know, you could wiggle it around and fill in the spot. Again, watch out for the edge and for the hem. At the top, you want to leave at least 1 inch without that shape in there. A 1/2 inch will be your seam allowance, but then the other half is just really for bulk, because once you have it all gathered up, this gets really thick in there. So you can leave 1 inch to 1.5 inches free of stuff, of paint splatters at the top. All right, I gotta fuse all these, and I'm pretty sure you guys don't want to watch me fuse them all on this teeny iron. Alright guys, so I have my machine set up. This is a computerized sewing machine, and I have it on a zigzag stitch to just go straight back and forth. The length is a 0.04 and the width is a 4.0, and they're over here. This is my stitch number, but the other info it wasn't showing up on the screen. Anyway, if you just had a regular machine, you're just going to have to kind of fiddle with your length and your width. Our point here is to get a zigzag stitch that's kind of tight, so it is really capturing the edges here. So I'm going to show you what this looks like. I'm not going to talk through this because the machine is loud, and I'll probably fast forward because it takes a little while. I'll show you both this really wiggly one and then one of the other ones that's a little bit more loose, because I made 2 different shapes. Alright, let's go. have met back up with the place where I started, and if you notice I didn't backstitch there, because it's kind of hard to do with zigzag stitching. There's just a few different ways you could finish these, but since I'm doing them all connected, where it saves some thread so it's one after another, then I'm just going to go over it. And you can, this particular stitch my machine loves to go back because it's just straight back and forth. So that's all I do. And so what I do is lift my foot, or lift my needle, lift my foot. And you saw me lift the foot a bunch of times a turn. It just makes it a lot easier because I don't have the fabric underneath of it, like in a tension, with tension. So to turn it. But this, you'll see, is a little bit looser. So you can do your paint splatters however you want. I kind of did these in batches. So these looser ones were my first batch, and then I got more crazy with it. Honestly, the looser ones, a lot faster to sew. So once again, I'm going to start just at a place that's kind of more straight if possible, because it's a little bit easier to do the finishing. And we're just going to go through this just like the beginning, or just like the other one. And hopefully that'll be a little bit easier for you to see too. I'm back at the beginning, and I'm just going to stitch right over that. So you saw that this one took way more turning, the yellow one. A lot more lifting of the foot to turn it, and this one you can kind of just guide it around the curves. So if you want something that will be shorter to do this. If you like it a little bit more splattery looking and less blobby, you can do this one, but just know that it's going to take longer to go around the curves. So we have quite a few of these to do. It's hard to see it on the camera right now, but it's a full sheet of fabric covered in different splotches. I'm going to do a part 2 to show you what actually building a skirt would look like, because say if you wanted to save yourself some time and you just picked out a really cute fabric, I'm going to show you how to do a gathered skirt. So that is all for this particular part. And I'm going to show you guys what the panel looks like. Bye guys. Alright guys, this is what the panel looks like finished. Now we're making 2 of these, but they both kind of look similar. You can see what it looks like with all the colors and what the embroidery looks like close up. We get to make 2 of these panels, but you could use this for a quilt or a pillow or whatever you were feeling. If you were doing a quilt, you probably want to put a backing on before you started doing the embroidery aspect of it, or you can quilt around the shapes, whichever you're feeling. But for today, we are working on a skirt. So this is part 1, and part 2 will actually be making the skirt, because you can do that with any type of fabric. And that's all for this. You can find out more stuff that I'm making on my website, which is just craftyladyabby.com. And also find me on Instagram and Twitter, Facebook, all Crafty Lady Abby stuff. Again, this tutorial is sponsored by Fairfield World, who provided me with the stick interfacing and actually is paying me to make this lovely little video. But I wanted to show you guys some sewing tutorials anyways, more than just on my website. So you can get this a good pressing, but really that stick is just kind of temporary to hold the fabric so you can stitch it. That's it guys. I hope you guys have a wonderful crafty day. Bye!